Hello, everyone. I am Brady Briggs back for another episode of the Combat Logic. As you see, I got Tyler Avery right here with me. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you, man?
Good. Good. We're gonna start off with the early prelims. Now, they opened up with a pretty good fight between Jonathan Martinez and Zavid Lashvili. Now, he's another Georgian wrestler. He was 13-0 coming into the fight. He got picked apart the first round. Started to pick Martinez apart a little bit in the second, and then lost the third. But he had a very good showing, and I'm excited to see another Georgian wrestler in the 135-pound division, just like Murad.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited about Jonathan Martinez. I think that that's the fight we're talking about, right?
Yep.
First fight.
Yep.
I feel like he's starting to grow into himself as a fighter a little bit.
Sure.
And he at first when he came into the UFC, like he was the inexperienced guy, and I think he's starting to turn into the experienced guy. I feel like we're gonna slowly start to see him take on a little bit better guys.
Yeah, I think that's needed because he debuted against Andre Sokomthal, a guy he would smash now. He won 2 fights, lost to Andre Ewell. He would also beat him now. That was a split decision. A lot of people thought he won too.
Right.
He was beating Davy Grant till he got cracked by him in the third round. Davy Grant's just good at finding his opponent's chin as the fight goes on. And yeah, dude, he looks good every time he fights. Whether he wins or loses, he always looks good. So I really can't wait to see him back.
I agree. I feel like he looks a little bit better every time he goes out, and a little bit more comfortable every time he goes out, and that's a big deal. In the UFC, I think he's just going to start to be able to fight better and better guys.
And he's always been very slick with his striking. He's always had a lot of tools to go to and resort to when he needs to. He's got 2 knockouts with knees in the UFC already.
Right.
Next up, we had Rondamarcos and Livia Hanato Sosa. How did you see this one going?
I kind of was surprised, honestly. I thought Rondamarcos was going to have a little more trouble in this fight.
Yeah.
I thought that on the feet, Sosa might have a little bit more of an advantage, maybe at least a little bit of an advantage, but it was quite the opposite, actually. Marcos kind of dominated all the way around. Not that she didn't face adversity in this fight. Sosa was in her face the whole time and was game the whole time, but she just got just overall dominated as a whole. She just was way more experienced, and you weren't going to slow down Rondamarcos that night. I feel like she came to win, and it was going to take something big to stop her.
Yeah, I said coming in that Rondamarcos, she doesn't have a good record, but she's a good fighter. Like, this is a perfect fight that shows you records don't mean shit. Because Sosa was 14-2 coming in. Marcos was 10-11. She's got like an Artem Lobov type record, and man, she's a good fighter. She's just very inconsistent. She did though. She won all 3 rounds of that fight on 2 of the scorecards.
Right.
I thought she did.
And if you look at the 2 fighters, Rondamarcos absolutely faced the better competition. So yes, she has a questionable record, but she hasn't shied away from tough fights at all by any means.
She fought a lot of the best girls in the world. Yeah,
absolutely.
Next up, we have Jeff Molina and Daniel Arceda de Silva. Now, this fight made me angry. It was a really good fight to watch, but this is the type of fight that really makes me not respect Keith Peterson, because the way he'll defend his Dominic Cruz stoppage, but just let this guy fucking die right in front of him for 30 seconds is just remarkable to me. But Jeff Molina looked really good, and De Silva looked really good too, actually. He had a couple good armbar attempts. Molina, something I want to say about this, you could tell in between rounds when he was talking to his coach, James Krause, it made a big difference, because he's like, dude, just relax. You don't have to be so, fucking gung-ho all the time. Just relax. And he went on and knocked him out the first few seconds of the second round. It was such great advice.
Yeah, you can't say enough about the fighters that fight under Krause, because they seem to also improve every fight, and Krause seems to really be able to give him good level-headed advice.
Yeah, I'm so glad he turned his role into coaching. I still want to see him fight, and he still does every so often, but
his last fight being at middleweight was super surprising to me.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, I think he won that fight too.
It took
the Trevin Giles fight. He took that on 1 day notice. It wasn't. Yeah, it was like exactly 24 hours. He weighed in, and then
I don't feel like he's a very big welterweight even, so fighting at middleweight was a big courage thing, I think.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that decision at all.
Yeah, it was a close one.
Jai Herbert fought Conor Worthy in the next fight. This was a good one. Now, Jai Herbert, I said, he's a kickboxer, and he showed that Conor Worthy's a really heavy-handed, good striker, too. He's not been knocked out 3 times in a row, though. And at 35 years old, he just turned 35, so that's good. But at 35 years old, he get knocked out 3 times in a row. I don't like the way it looks. He did win his first 3 fights in the UFC, though, so I would like to see him back just after like 9 or 12 months of healing his chin a little bit.
Yeah, this was one that Kama needed, I think.
Yeah, he really
and I think it was one that was winnable for him. So it kind of probably stings for him to lose this one. Nothing against Herbert. He came in with the smarter game plan, and he landed the shots he needed to early enough to change the pace of the fight and make it kind of his fight. But it's a tough loss for Worthy. I don't know where he goes from here. Hopefully he gets another shot, but I feel like I wouldn't be ridiculously surprised if he gets released.
I wouldn't either. I hope he doesn't, but I mean, like I said in the pre-fight, like he's fought some good fighters. He made his debut with a 13-6 record, but dude, he fought Paul Felder when he was 1-1. He fell to 1-2 that night. He fought Billy Quarantillo when he was 7-2. Billy Quarantillo is doing so well in the UFC right now. Like he just mauls everybody. He fought Kyle Nelson. A lot of guys that are in the UFC right now, like, and he knocked out Devontae Smith. Actually, no, he only says here he was 14-6. All right, so he went 2-0 in the UFC. Nonetheless, he beat 2 really good fighters, Devontae Smith and Luis Pena.
Yeah.
So we know he's capable of some pretty good things.
Right, and he shows glimpses of hope in his fights.
Really
it's not
does.
like he doesn't look impressive. He just can't seem to put together enough to get the actual win nowadays, it seems.
Right.
And he puts his chin out there a little too much.
Oh yeah, he definitely does. That being said, I am very glad to see Jai Herbert get his first win in the UFC because he made his debut against Francisco Trinaldo, pieced him apart the whole time until he got cracked in the 3rd round. And then he just got mauled by Renato Moicano in his last fight. So I'm super glad to see that he'll still be in the UFC at least.
For sure, I agree with that.
Jamie Pickett and Loreno Staropoli. This fight really surprised me, and I think it has a lot to do with what your point was. Jamie Pickett is, well, first off, he was too big, but second off, he's a lot better than I thought he was. He's a lot better than he showed in his first couple fights. Like, he's a really good fighter.
Yeah, Jamie Pickett is a really big, strong kickboxer.
Yeah, dude.
He's not easy to take down.
He just dominated Loreno the whole time.
Yeah, and Loreno's boxing looked good. Jamie just looked better. I don't think Loreno Staropoli looked bad. He looked a little one-dimensional, but
he kind of does.
Yeah, but his boxing was almost completely neutralized by Jamie Pickett.
I didn't expect this out of Loreno, honestly. Like, he won his first 2 fights in the UFC. Then he lost to Muslim Salikov, who's like 185-13 in pro kickboxing. Loreno's a kickboxer. I expected him to lose that fight. Tim Means, I expected it to be close, but he's a really experienced guy for someone who's only 9-2. But these last 2 fights, I really didn't expect him to lose.
Yeah,
he might not blossom into what I thought he could be.
Another thing to consider is we're kind of seeing Jamie Pickett is not just a kickboxer. He went for a few takedowns and he was successful with them.
He was successful in defending them too.
Yeah, he only was taken down once, and I feel like he wasn't down for too long.
Right? No, he wasn't. No, he dominated the whole fight. Like, yeah, Loreno had a couple moments, but I mean that was Pickett's fight the whole time. What about Tabitha Ricci and Maria de Baranetta?
That might have been one that I missed. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't remember that one either.
There's a lot of takedowns in that. I'll tell you, it was a ground dominating. Oh no, I remember I did see this one. I just saw a little bit towards the end. This was a decision where a lot of wrestling was utilized. She got 5 takedowns and she had 6 minutes and 30 seconds control time.
Tabitha did.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure she won with wrestling. The strike count was pretty much even throughout the fight. However, the ground stats show a different story about how the fight went.
Yeah, for sure. The next one we were very excited about, and I'm super, super surprised this didn't get fight of the night. Mason Jones versus David Onama. Oh my God. I said that he was at least 9-0 as an amateur because that's what his Tapology page said. He's actually 10-0 as an amateur. He was 8-0 as a pro. And he gave Mason all he could fucking handle.
Yeah.
Like, one thing I have to say about Mason, though, is he will not end up on bottom. Like, I don't know, man. Like, his scrambling ability is just so good. He just refuses to accept bottom position. Kind of like Grant Dawson until round 3 of his fight. But David Onama, man, I can't wait to see more of him. And Mason Jones, like, you can't keep fighting like this forever, man.
He's one tough bird.
He's so young and he's been through so many wars already. Like, look what that did to Rory McDonald, you know?
Right. I agree with that. And David Onama has showed that he has ability, but also room to improve. There was parts of that fight where he looked a little bit like deer in headlights. I feel like he got a little bit winded towards the end of that, and his technique wasn't quite the same as when he first started. But he's a young fighter, you know. Those things happen. He took a tough test right off the bat. So
really tough.
He proved a lot to others and probably to himself.
Well, dude, he
took
this fight on a week or 2 weeks notice. He's a natural featherweight. They fought at 55. Mason is the Cage Warriors 55 and 70 champ. So he was when he came over. He was the champ.
It was a big test for him, and I feel like it's going to boost his confidence, and we'll see him fight even more confidently.
Yeah, for sure, because he put on a really great fight against a really great guy.
It was a kind of a win for both guys, almost.
For sure, especially considering Onama didn't get finished. Yeah, that might actually be his first fight that went the distance.
Right,
the 15-minute distance anyway. Gregory Rodriguez and Jung Young Park. Gregory Rodriguez really surprised me with his striking. I knew he was a really great he surprised me with his grappling. I knew he was a good striker, but man, like, it looked like he might get the submission win a couple times in that fight. And then it looked like John was gonna pour it on in the start of the second round. He had him hurt so bad, and he just got too overzealous, got caught himself. And that right uppercut that Gregory Rodriguez landed, that like is standing KO'd him. The ref held him up.
I agree with the stoppage.
Oh yeah.
I don't always agree with standing KOs, but that one I was not happy about.
Yeah.
I personally had a little belief for Gregory Rodriguez going into this one. I thought he was going to take this. I knew that Jung Young Park was going to have to fight through adversity if he was going to win this, and he definitely did fight through adversity, even with the loss.
Because he lost that whole first round, and then he came out in the second like a fucking killer.
He showed that he had a little more cardio, but Gregory Rodriguez carried a little bit of his power even when he was tired, and he showed that he hits a lot harder than a lot of these guys. So even when he's exhausted, he's still dangerous.
He kicks really hard too.
He does.
That fight didn't go very long, and that makes me a little nervous because I noticed him fading too. But just work on.
He got baited into throwing high volume with Jung Young Park though, because he likes to stay right in your face, and he's okay with taking a little damage. It doesn't discourage him. He'll still come back and fight later on. So if you get baited into throwing a lot of punches early with him, you could be tricked into like a Diaz style way of losing, just getting tired and them not being tired and pouring it on you later in the rounds.
Yeah, and that's no fun at all.
No, it's a scary thing.
It really is. Nikolai Neguramonu beat Eichmann pretty handily. No, I didn't expect him to knock him out like that. I expected him to win, but what do you think of this one?
To be honest, this reminded me a little bit of the Laureano Serapoli fight because I expected him. One second, I just lost it. I expected Ike Villanueva to potentially win with his boxing in the same way I thought the other guy was going to win with his boxing, but it was kind of the other way around. The more well-rounded mixed martial artists end up winning in both cases.
Yeah, Ike Villanueva is the furthest thing from all-rounded.
Yeah, he's a boxer.
Yeah, that's about it.
Which, that being said, I was excited to see him fight because I knew it was probably going to be a firefight. But Nikolai,
it was well lasted.
I don't know how to say his name. Nikolai something like that. But he showed that he isn't afraid to strike either.
Mm-mm.
He was right in the pocket trading with Ike
That's a hard
Villanueva,
dude
who
to
is
trade with.
yeah, who
He
you
hits
know
so
you could
hard.
get discouraged trading with someone like that. Getting hit a
Yeah.
couple times could change the whole outlook of the fight from there.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited to see what Nikolai has from here on out. Francisco Trinaldo and Dwight Grant. No, this had a little bit of controversy, and I think it was in the third round, but I still think the winner was justified. I think Trinaldo won that fight. Grant was fading really bad. You know, I don't know. I won't want to say Grant isn't a fighter, but it seems like, because he obviously is, but it seems like when he deals with real adversity and he gets tired, he's not the same anymore. You know, that's the case with a lot of fucking people. But he was tagging Francisco really good throughout the whole fight. It's just Francisco's a former lightweight. Now that he moves up to welterweight, he's not cutting all that water out of his brain. He can take those shots, and he looked good.
We haven't seen a lot from Dwight Grant, I feel, in the UFC as a whole.
No, we haven't. He doesn't fight very often.
He is a really old fighter. I feel like people forget that. So, not that Francisco Trinaldo isn't as old, but
he's 6 years older actually, but he fights more.
And it feels like some people, their age doesn't affect them until different points in their life. And I feel like for Dwight Grant, we're approaching the twilights of his career because he doesn't have the killer instinct. I think is what you might be talking about.
And it sucks because he's such a good fighter, man. Like, he's so fun to watch. We haven't seen
technical fighter.
Yeah, we haven't seen many of his performances.
And he struggles with strong wrestlers, as we saw from this.
Yeah. That's the thing about Trinaldo. He's 12-1 as a kickboxer, but if he can't win with his kickboxing, he can wrestle you.
He's a very strong guy.
He's strong as fuck. Oh man, he's probably one of the stronger welterweights we had. Definitely one of the stronger lightweights we had. Alex Caceres and Seung-Woo Choi. This was a really good fight. Now, I didn't know how this was going to go. I thought Caceres was going to use his footwork to outpoint him, and Seung is kind of like a move forward, stationary kind of target. Alex opened it up with a really nice, snappy head kick. Choi opened it up with a head kick. Alex blocked it, and then Alex landed his own head kick. And right then and there, I was like, Alex is going to win this fight. If he can do that against Choi, a Muay Thai champion, he's going to win this fight. Then Choi started landing his cross that could not miss, and he hurt Alex about every time he landed it.
Got a knockdown as well.
Yeah, he got a little overzealous, got his back taken, and Caceres got the choke not long after. Typical Bruce Leroy fashion.
Yeah.
It was awesome, man. It was really cool.
Yeah, I feel like Caceres is growing into himself a little bit more. When he was first in the UFC didn't have as many levels of competition as they do now. Now they have more of a building block for a young fighter. Alex Caceres kind of was thrown in the deep end at a really young age, and now I feel like he's more experienced and it's more plausible for him to move up properly. That being said, now is the time for him to be moving up. He doesn't have a ton of time left. I feel like now he's in his prime. He's stronger than he's ever been and better than he's ever been. Technically,
he's learning how to
start to take bigger fights and see what he can do with it.
Yeah, he's learning how to tie it all together, which is nice.
He's less of a specialist now. He's a little more well-rounded.
Right. Yeah, this is the first 5-fight win streak of his UFC career. Now, he did have one prior. It finished off with a submission victory over Sergio Pettis. But in the middle of that, a win was overturned to a no contest because of weed. So really, this is the first 5-fight win streak of his UFC career, and the first one since 2014, anyways. You
know what would be an interesting matchup? Would be like an Alex Caceres. I know there's a difference in weight there, but stylistically, Alex Caceres and O'Malley.
Yeah, that would be cool because Caceres has fought at 35 a bunch of times too.
Yeah. That would be a cool matchup, and it would be a slight. Cool. I feel like O'Malley likes to be smart about his growth as a fighter, and he takes the fights.
That wouldn't be a smart fight to take, honestly.
I think it would be like a small step up, but a step up, and it would be versus an experienced guy.
Yeah.
So it would prove to him that would be a good fight for either of them to decide who's going to be breaking in and fighting the guys.
For sure. I agree. I think Caceres could just be a really bad matchup for him. I'm not saying I think Caceres would win. O'Malley might win.
With the jiu-jitsu.
If that somehow hits the mat, though, yeah, dude. That's not...
We would see O'Malley's jiu-jitsu tested because the only time we see O'Malley on the ground is when he's hurt.
Yeah, plus he hasn't fought a striker like Caceres either. I mean, I do believe he's a better striker, but he hasn't fought a striker like Caceres before.
That being said, O'Malley's loss that he has, I think, was a tougher fight than Caceres.
Yeah.
Chico.
Yeah, I could agree with that. And he looked better than ever early on in that
Chico
fight.
was underrated.
Yeah, I agree, dude. Marlon Vera's been one of the best for a while, dude. He fucking finishes everybody.
Agreed.
Jessica Rose Clark and Jocelyn Edwards. How'd this one go?
Well, I expected Jessica Rose Clark to win this. She's a pretty gritty fighter. I don't know. I didn't know much about Jocelyn Edwards, and I just went into this thinking that Jessica Rose Clark was probably going to take this one.
She did pretty dominantly.
She did pretty well. When it came to striking, Jocelyn Edwards kind of had the upper hand slightly. She landed more at least. But when it came down to takedowns and ground control, it was all Jessica Rose Clark.
That's oftentimes what it is. When you see the more experienced fighter, it's usually their grappling that makes the difference.
Yeah, and the striking was close, and that's what makes it special to me is like Jessica Rose Clark almost had like a specialist performance. She had 11 minutes and 40 seconds control time and 5 takedowns.
I didn't
So
know that.
the whole fight she dominated on the ground, but when it was on the feet, she could hang as well. And that was obviously Jocelyn Edwards' way to victory, and this was her striking.
Sure.
But Jessica Rose Clark showed that she could hang with that as well. So I feel promising things for Jessica Rose Clark.
Yeah, I like her. She's a good fighter. She's really beautiful too. I like watching her.
For sure.
A co-main event with between Grant Dawson and Rick Glenn. And this was the first time we ever saw Grant Dawson in any type of trouble, any type of adversity. Walk me through this one.
Yeah, Grant Dawson, Ricky Glenn, kind of one of those ones where a little stock in both of their pockets, I think. Grant Dawson has a lot of hype. He trains with a good team, so they expect good things from him. I feel like a lot of people expected him to beat Ricky Glenn, but I feel like a lot of people didn't expect Ricky Glenn to give him so many problems.
I didn't expect Grant to get tired. Like, he did really well in the first round. Then the second round, he was shooting desperation shots. But I've seen that out of him a bunch of times before, some of which he gets, some of which he doesn't. If he doesn't, he's going to get the next one. He doesn't get tired, but he got tired. And do you think round 3 was a 10-8? I think it could have been just because of the anaconda choke, or maybe it was a Dars. I don't remember. It was a front choke that he had on him.
It's tough.
So I
10-8s are tough for me to decide where the line is to make it become a 10-8. Sometimes I have a hard time with that unless it's completely like no punches landed for the other guy and domination.
Yeah. Well, with the ground and pound at the end of the round, I didn't score the 10-8. But considering how close that choke was locked in, like it would have been. I want to see him rematch though. I want to see Dawson get this back. He didn't lose, but I want to see him get it back. We've never seen that out of him before, and I'm glad we did see it though, because I know he's going to grow a lot from that. He's never gotten tired in a fight before. I haven't seen it anyways. I'm sure
he's suffered a little fatigue, but nothing like this.
Yeah, well, he can always push through it.
Yeah,
he's just a lung burner, you know.
And that's the thing also about Grant Dawson. You said that he will panic wrestle sometimes, and sometimes his takedowns won't be elite technique. But for Grant Dawson, he's so strong and such a good scrambler that he just really wants to initiate the grappling. So if he goes in on a takedown and gets stuffed, even if he ends up on the bottom, he will quickly be on top after if his opponent allows that to happen. And a lot of times that's what happens. It's hard to hold Grant Dawson down. So if he initiates grappling, he's usually in the clear.
That's what I'm saying with his scrambles. Like what's his name, Mason Jones, he doesn't end up on bottom. So that's what told me, like, when he didn't get up, when he tried to get up that second time in the third round, he couldn't. I was like, he's exhausted, dude, because there's no way in hell Rick Glenn could hold him down if he wasn't. Rick Glenn's a very good fighter. He's a World Series of Fighting champion, but he's not good enough to hold Dawson down if he's fresh. Yeah,
it's one thing to be better on the bottom, but don't expect to be on top. And if you do expect it, you might be in for a hard night.
If that was a 5-round fight, it could have went really bad. Like, that was Dawson's 6th UFC fight. It could have been a main event. You know? What about the main event, man? Between Marvin Vettori and Paulo Costa. This was a lot. It went a lot like I thought it would. I figured either Costa would get the knockout. I didn't really see that happening because Marvin's never been finished. Then again, it is Paulo Costa, and he did weigh in like a fucking heavyweight. He was over 20 pounds more than Vettori on fight night. But Vettori looked good, man. He ain't afraid of shit. Like, Paulo hits so hard, he kicks so hard, like, and he just walked through everything except for that head kick in the second round, which took him about 2 seconds and he was better. Like,
Yeah, I have a few points to bring up on this. Paulo Costa was definitely bigger in the weigh-ins to this, but he didn't look better. I saw side by sides of him, and he looked exactly the same size with a little bit more fat to him, and he was a little bit less cut. I don't think it helped him that much. If anything, it deterred him. But at the same time, I don't know if it would have been much different at middleweight. I
don't think so.
It would have been a little much more action. But
yeah,
Paulo Costa could have stopped Marvin, but Marvin is a tough guy, athletic, and he has a pretty decent cardio for the size that he is.
Yeah, he does.
So I feel like that's what carried him through this fight. I was a little surprised, but not too surprised. I knew this fight could go either way, and we wouldn't really know until we saw a minute into round one. It would be easier to make an opinion on this fight.
Yeah.
And that kind of is how it went.
Well, with Paulo Costa, he weighed in at 226 the night of the fight. And when he weighs in at 185 or 186, I'm assuming he weighs around that much by the next day anyways, at least 220. Right. He's such a massive dude. But
he weighed 215 for his fight with Yoel Romero.
Okay, so yeah, it's pretty fucking close.
Yeah.
It's about 10 pounds. I think he did it to get into Vettori's head. I think he did it to make Vettori think that he wasn't training, to make him think he wasn't really taking it seriously. He did pull out of his last 2 fights.
There was probably a bunch of reasons that only his camp knows.
Yeah, and
who knows what's going on in his life. He might have just made some dumb mistakes.
Oh, I'm sure that happened. He doesn't seem like the brightest guy. But he said it was a torn bicep, why he couldn't. And Marvin had the same exact response. What, you can't fucking run if you have a torn bicep? Like, that's why you cut.
Or don't sign the agreement.
Right.
Or don't agree or tell them when it happens. I mean, no one wants to pull out of a fight, but you can't talk about injuries and stuff when you knew that going into it.
Yeah.
You can't know about something going into it and then hold on to it later. If you know going into it that you have an injury, you're agreeing that you think you can still win the contest.
I don't even think he was that hurt. I mean, maybe he was, but it didn't keep him from cutting weight, man. Like, that doesn't keep
I don't think that necessarily determined the outcome of the fight. It's not that I wouldn't like to see it happen again. I think it's still a competitive fight, but I feel like Marvin was the fair and honest winner in this.
Yeah, for sure. And Paulo also said that he was never given a bout agreement for a middleweight fight.
Right.
He said that he only signed one for 205 when really they signed one for 185, 195, 198, and then 205. 4 different contracts for this one fight. It's pretty fucking crazy.
And Dana White has told Costa that he has to move to light heavyweight now. I don't know if you
Yep, I was gonna mention that. I almost forgot. Yeah, which I'm glad to see. It's like you just fucked yourself, bud. I'm glad.
We'll see if he actually looks good at light heavyweight, because if he does fight at light heavyweight going down the road, if he wants his skill set to be applicable, the same reasons why it was so applicable at middleweight, he's gonna have to
add a little more technique, maybe some feints,
and you'll have to. I mean, it's hard to say Paulo Costa needs to add more muscle, but he just straight up did not look as good as he did at middleweight. Yeah, he just carried more fat. A lot of times you'd expect him to just be bigger because you might lose some muscle in the cut. He just looked like he was just chubbier. That was it.
Well, he still carries the power up. That's obvious. Yeah. But I think at 185, it's definitely worse because, like I said, they're cutting water out of their whole bodies. Like, that power is going to make a big difference. And Paulo is a lot more technical than people give him credit for. I mean, let's be honest.
The reasons what made him so dominant was him being
size,
brute strength, and being in shape to carry his power through the fight.
He throws good.
With Yoel Romero, that whole fight, he was dangerous. He was getting kind of winded in this fight. So I don't think that extra fat does him any good.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't.
And I feel like when people move up, sometimes it gives them an extra leeway to be like, well, it's okay, I can do this, I can do that because I'm doing this weight now. And then that's when you see fighters who move up still miss weight up another weight class because they just take it for granted.
Like
Now
John
they're like,
Lineker.
I can let my weight go willy-nilly because I'm not cutting weight right now. That's what makes me think about the John Jones situation, and with the way that things go with him and how his maturity appears, at least to the media and to the world, it almost makes it seem like if he's given the opportunity to not have to cut weight anymore, all his discipline could go out the window in general. Like, he'd be like, I don't need to train.
And he didn't have as
to
much
make
of it as
heavyweight
anyway.
He could go on a bender and fight at heavyweight because his weight.
I would hope that he learned his lessons from that, you know, this Gustafsson fight in his last couple of fights. Well, I don't think
Learn his lessons.
Yeah, I don't think he I don't think he partied for his last couple of fights. I just think it's obvious he's not the same man with all the steroids. And people think he's going to do well at heavyweight because of his athleticism. And against some guys, he might. I don't see him beating Ngannou. I don't even see him beating Ngannou. His wrestling.
I feel like he'll do well as long as he doesn't use not having to make weight as a reason to be less dedicated.
Yeah. Derek Lewis, maybe he could be if he doesn't get hit by him. You know, because of his kicks, his diversity. But yeah, he's just not the same guy. I'm excited to see it though. I hope it actually happens. I predicted when he said it would happen.
I also don't put it past him to win boring point fights where he jabs and kicks.
That's what he did in his last two fights, even though he lost.
Like an Oven St. Peru style win.
Yeah, that was at least dominant.
Or Thiago Santos.
Yeah, that was kind of like Anthony Smith, where he just dominated, but it was boring. What would you like to see for next for Marvin Vettori and Paulo Costa?
It's hard for Marvin because he's already used a lot of.
Yeah, he's already fought Israel twice.
He doesn't have a lot of options right now at middleweight, to be honest. He could fight, depending on how Whitaker does. If Whitaker doesn't win his next fight, he could fight Whitaker. I don't know if that looks good from his point of view. It looks good from the fans' point of view and where they sit.
That'd be a fitting fight, yeah, for sure.
I think Marvin wants to fight whoever's next in line to fight for the title, though. So if Whitaker loses, he might want to fight whoever else they want to put next.
Brunson winner, maybe.
Maybe. I think. Well, Cannonier, I think, needs to get a couple strings of wins before, but Brunson.
I think Dana did say
he's established himself enough that a couple wins puts Brunson right there.
Dana did say that's a number one contender fight. I think Jared's coming off a win over you. Actually, he might be fucking coming off a loss to Whitaker still.
I bet you Vettori sits out for a while and watches what happens in the division.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be bad for him, especially considering he's still.
He doesn't have a ton of options unless he wants to give someone a shot outside of the rank, like outside of the top 5 rankings.
Or fight at 205 again. I mean, yeah, he's coming off a win over Kelvin.
I was gonna say that after
Jared is.
205 again would be an option, but
he's not a big 205er though. Like,
no,
people say he's a big middleweight.
He's
not huge.
He's a
good sized middleweight.
He's a well
he's not a
balanced height versus thickness guy.
Yeah, and
he's he's tall but not lanky.
Yeah.
He's almost tall and stocky, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, he's like as tall as me, but with so much more muscle and probably shorter arms.
Yeah. But he's still next to Costa in the cage, looked a lot smaller.
Oh yeah, dude. He said that. He's like, as soon as Paulo walked in the cage, he's like, yeah, he's big. Like, he's really big. But then to go out and do what he did against a guy that he knows is, he's that big and he knows how dangerous he is. That's the thing, man, because Paulo can pour it on. He can throw a lot of combos, you know, punches, shovel hooks to your fucking body, and then come upstairs and then land body kicks, head kick. He's really good.
His punching and boxing techniques is pretty good for a big guy. He has good range of motion for a big, bulky guy.
Yeah, for sure. So what's next for him? I mean, I wonder if he has any fights left on his contract.
That's what's
because if he doesn't, maybe go to middleweight in another promotion. But I'm sure he probably has a couple fights left most of the time.
I feel like the UFC isn't ready to let him go yet. They probably punch his ticket a few times at light heavyweight.
I want to see him get a win. He was 13-0. He's 13-2 now. Even though he is a cunt for what he did, I'd kind of like to see him do well. He's fun to watch, you know.
Yeah, I like to see guys that are exciting do well, even if they're not great people. Like, I always like to see Connor win because it keeps that train going.
Right,
I feel like it's good for.
That's why I like the Paul brothers. It keeps the shit show going, man. It's fun. It's a circus.
Absolutely, yeah. And I feel like it does have its place.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Like, we have like the sports, like, analysts watching side of MMA, and then we have the the circus part that we can watch too. It's almost like the WWE version.
Yeah, and it wasn't like this before.
It gives you like a break from the
years ago.
seriousness.
Right, dude. I think the start of it was Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. And then the Paul started, right? Or maybe the Paul started right before that.
There was, I mean, if we're talking about what really started it, it was everyone trying to fight Soulja Boy like years and years and years ago. That celebrity boxing is what got what ended up all those celebrity boxing matches. Shaq did some, and all that started like little hype of who could beat this celebrity or who could beat this YouTuber. So
it's interesting. I'm glad it started, man, because it's so much shit to cover. It's so much shit to stay entertained to. Like I said, I can't even watch any other sports anymore because there's just so many fights on of all sorts all the time.
There's serious fights that are a joke, but you still want to watch them because it's still fun. It's just different. People don't like it because it's not typical sports, but it's not supposed to be.
Not. Yeah, right. It's a expectation, you know. Yeah. BKFC started doing that too, even though they fucking give them gloves for those fights.
It's like a festival versus a concert. They're different experiences. You get different things out of them.
Very true. Very true.
So if you go to watch a celebrity boxing match, you go to be like, ooh, like you don't go to be like, oh, this is a super technical match.
Right. No.
And you don't go to see super closely margined skill levels. You go to see people get punched in the mouth that are running their mouth, and people you don't like.
Hoping to see them get hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you just gotta accept it for what it is and appreciate it for what it is, and don't expect it to be a UFC fight.
Right, because I hated it at first, and I used to think that too. It was like, yeah, they're not skilled, they're not good. I mean, they are. They're just not the best in the world, you know. It's still a fight.
It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a good show, and that's what it is.
I just like watching people fight, so it's a lot of fun.
For sure.
I think that wraps up our post fight. So we'll do a pre-fight for UFC 267 coming this weekend. But that's a really good fucking card. And check out my next video of all the upcoming cards for the next 3-4 months. Thanks everybody for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a good one.